Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week I sat down with Nathan Lee Graham, currently seen on Fox's new sitcom LA to Vegas, where he plays Bernard, a flight attendant for Jackpot Airlines. You may also recognize Nathan from his role as Todd in Zoolander and Zoolander 2. Nathan was also in the original Broadway cast for the Tony-nominated Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and earned a 2005 Best Classical Album Grammy as a vocal soloist. We talked about everything from Eartha Kitt to being typecast in roles, and whether or not we could ever see Bernard have a musical number. I hope you enjoy.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Nathan. This is Les from the TV Dudes. Thank you so much for taking the time to do the interview today.
My pleasure, Les. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am really enjoying LA to Vegas. It fits perfectly in that sitcom spot that everybody needs, the reason that there's always going to be a sitcom.
I love hearing that.
So thank you so much for adding so much to that show. You have done so much wonderful work across different fields, movies, TV, theater. I know you take pride in your projects. What drew you to LA to Vegas?
Well, it's so funny. I was in the midst of doing a musical off-Broadway called The View Upstairs when I got called in for the actual audition/meeting. And because I'm such a, I like to call myself a contract player or, a veteran of being on the boards, just an old curmudgeon, right? I wasn't over the audition experience. I was just like, okay, let's get this done. Here's another one, because I had a show that night. So I was thinking, this is, messing up my preparation for my show. So I went in completely relaxed. And through the wonderful work of Clint Alexander, the casting agent, he was just like, Nathan, let's get a clean pass of this. I think that's something that you could really do. I'm thinking to myself, sure, let's get a clean pass. But at the same time, this happens often, and this is a great role, but we'll see. So I never even thought beyond that. And that was a great feeling, because that's exactly who Bernard is. He's sort of, this veteran sort of flight attendant, not over things, but he takes them in stride, and then he's sort of, single-minded in his aspirations. So I had the right attitude for Bernard at that time when I walked into that room and didn't even know it. And then it's just sort of blossomed with wonderful writers getting to know you and me getting to know, what the tone of the piece is and what we're going for.
Can you talk a bit about how on set you keep that energy right?
Well, I tell you, it is truly a collaborative effort, because the directors that they bring in are working simultaneously with the cadre of writers we have. And then those writers really sort of listened to us when we all had our sort of individual sessions as characters with the writers. And then we as a cast, we actually get along on and off the set. So that feeling of ensemble and passing the hot potato to the next person is actually fun for us. Like, we get off on it. We literally, come up with gags and and shenanigans and things like this when we're not shooting, and then we'll say to each other, "Let's try this," and then we'll collaborate with, the producers and the writers of that episode and the director. Let's try this. Let's try that. And that's really why it works, because we're always thinking as a team, and it happened naturally. I must admit that whatever the casting process was, they got it right. And we all just showed up and were like, listen, let's make this show as good as possible, as fast as possible. Because, traditionally shows aren't that great in their first season. They sort of find themselves by their second season. But because the market is so saturated, I feel like you got to get in there and make it happen right away. So we just had that spirit about us, and everyone's really cool and really good at their jobs. So that's how we roll,
Yeah, you hear it said now that like Seinfeld wouldn't get a second season.
Yeah, neither would Sex and the City. Neither would, we could go on and on and on. All these shows that we apparently love now, or I should say actually love now. Yeah, they had time to grow. They had time to actually grow, to find an audience, but now it's like there's so many shows that you got to sort of put down your mark right away. And because of the tone that was set from the top with Steve Levitan and, Adam McKay and that dear friend, Will Ferrell, we just sort of knew going in what kind of, sort of tone we could do. And then we asked questions. We're like, is this too broad? Or, we're going right up to the edge here, So I think literally going up to the edge and teetering on it and literally being tongue in cheek and living in that space is what really gets us going. And it's not just shock value for shock value. It's actually, it's like a heightened sense of who these people are. So, and what's amazing to me is that flight attendants have been messaging me and getting to me through social media with the most wonderful accolades of, this really happened on our plane. That happened. We say this. We do that in the galley. This is amazing. We see our lives happening. This is so neat for us to have this kind of show. So that's worth all of it to me.
Oh, that's hysterical. You're the Roseanne for flight attendants.
Exactly. Love it.
So I know on shows like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, at the start of the season, the actors will kind of come in and tell the writer's room what, other skills they might have, like Donna Lynn Champlin can tap dance, things like that. Is there some point where we're, going to get to see, a fugue state musical number or just some crazy where Bernard just takes it over?
Oh, hell yes. Hell yes. First of all, every one of our cast members can sing. So, and the plane is already a built-in sort of runway set. It's just a thrust stage. So and it's so theatrical because we have the same sort of customers going back and forth, and flight attendants are like actors because they have to sort of feel out what's going on with the audience members every time, and we're all trapped together for a certain amount of time. So it's primed and ready for a musical. So it's on the writer's radar. They know that everyone in the cast can sing. We always sort of, boogie down in between takes. Dylan McDermott will whip out his iPhone and just, put some hip hop tunes on. We'll always be singing on the set. Every one of the cast members can sing. So it's just, and everyone's so musical. So it's just like a treasure trove, and it's primed and ready for a musical. And come on. You got to have a musical on an airplane. You just got to. So we're they're primed for it. They're queued up.
I wanted to talk a bit about your relationship with Eartha Kitt, who for me as a kid was the Catwoman.
Oh yes,
and
me too.
So you met her doing the Wild Party? Is that correct?
Well, we actually met before when I was in my early 20s, because I started coming to New York in the early 80s. Yes, I'm that old. In the early 80s, and instead of spring break and going to Florida or something, I would come to New York and see 11 shows. Well, part of that was me seeing Eartha at the Cafe Carlisle or wherever she was performing here in the city. So I initially met her then, and then was an avid fan. Even growing up as a teenager, my parents were like, "Oh God, he's already in theater. Why does he have to be so weird?" But I was. And, and so I was that teenager that carried a briefcase to school and got taunted. So I always had a fascination with her, always loved her. And then, a cut to us working on Broadway in the Wild Party together and becoming friends. into her dying day. God rest her soul. It's just, I can't believe it, because it's so rare that you actually get a chance to meet someone that you idolize, and then for them to become a kind of mentor to you, and she truly was, and then a friend, and someone who, would call you on the phone, and especially back in the days when we had these little answering machines with the little micro mini tape.
Mm-hmm.
She would call me in Los Angeles after the Wild Party was over, and I had to go out there, and I was doing Sweet Home Alabama and Hitch, and she would say to me things like, "Hello, Nathan, it's Eartha." And I think to myself, who the hell else would this be with this voice?
Right.
But she'd leave these messages, these wonderful messages, and she would tell me about stories about living next door to Gypsy Rose Lee when she was in Hollywood. She would never call it L.A. She would always call it Hollywood. And, just every fantasy that I had as a little kid, as a adolescent, a teenager, coming true, even in phone messages. So our relationship just kept blossoming because she wanted it to do so, and she was very generous with allowing me into her private life, and I was very respectful of that. I never kept any tapes. I always destroyed them, and because so many of her tapes were absconded or put on eBay or whatever if she called you or whatever. So I never did any of those sort of things, and I just valued the relationship and could pinch myself to this day that we had such a great friendship beyond just working on Broadway together in a great show.
Yeah, so often you hear the, never meet your idols adage.
Oh, absolutely.
And to, to read interviews with you where you talk about, riding to the grocery store with Eartha Kitt, it's so surreal. I
mean, listen, it just, she picks us up. She picks me and a fellow colleague up from, let's say, Mount Kisco in Westchester. And then she's a diminutive person, right? A large personality, but physically very small and always in shape. She wore ankle weights all the time and jumped rope incessantly. She was brilliant. But this huge black Range Rover and this small woman, and it was like we were in the set of like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or something where you're turning corners and she's on two wheels and my friend is terrified and I'm laughing hysterically in the back seat because, she's driving like she's on the Indy 500, and it's just so funny. And she's just great. She was just great. She was just great.
I know you had done child acting. You were in Bad News Bears in Japan.
Yeah, I was a glorified extra, so you probably wouldn't even find me in the cut. But that was my first experience with Jack Warden and Walter Matthau, and Tony Curtis. Just amazing.
And you'd said that you'd always been interested in theater. When was the point, or what set it off when you knew you couldn't do anything else?
I actually do not remember when I did anything else. And so I always grew up thinking, because I started so early, I always grew up thinking that this was what you did, and thought it odd for other people not to do it when I was a kid. And so any trouble I would ever get in as a kid happened as a result of me being in an adult world, because my parents treated me, like a young adult, because I had to deal with, showing up on time for this or that or the other. And, everyone treated me like I had a job to do. So when I was in situations with teachers or kids, I would tend to get in trouble because, I just didn't speak like a kid. I carried myself like the young professional I thought I was. And so I can't really remember a time where I thought this isn't what I was supposed to do. And then, so, in high school, I certainly went to college for it and got a BFA. I just can't remember a time where I didn't look through an artist lens as to what my life was about, which is kind of crazy because I've never had a real job outside of, show business. And I've never waited tables or anything like that. And so when times were lean, or leaner, I should say, I was like, what else can I do? I don't have any skills. I've never filled out an application for a job. I don't know what to do. So it's like, I'd better get another job in the theater or on, or on television, or because I don't have any other skills. So it's really been that kind of situation for me, which is not the norm. And I recognize that now more than ever. It's been kind of remarkable. Even when it was, bad, it was still good.
I've heard you say in other interviews that you've been warned a bit early on in your career about pigeonholing yourself in gay roles.
Yeah.
Is that something that you still feel younger actors are hearing now, or is that improving, do you think?
I think it is improving because the roles are improving. So that's a good thing. You want quality roles. I mean, my whole sort of mantra is, my whole MO is it good? Is it a good part? Is it written well? Then you can do it. That's where I start. I guess it is a subjective thing. It depends on what you want out of life. But I always wanted to see people who were like me, or images of me, or whatever, in positive ways on the screen, in particular, because it reaches so many people, small and large. And so the whole idea of pigeonholing myself, me playing someone that was like me, seemed ridiculous to me. I said to myself, well, my straight colleagues don't go around and go, oh, my God, I can't believe I have to play another straight role.
Yeah.
None of them do this. What they want is good roles. What they want is well-written roles. You don't become legitimized because you can play one gender or the other, or you can play one sexual orientation or the other. You should be noted for the quality of the work you're doing, and that depends upon the quality of the role that you're playing and the writing. So for me, it wasn't even a question. It was a question certainly for people who were representing me at the time. They were like, well, you're just going to pigeonhole yourself. And I said, but what am I pigeonholing myself to? You're acting as if it's something negative, and I'm telling you that it's not negative at all. It's a good thing, but we just need more roles written for me to do, and that have to be, not sort of one-dimensional, but multifaceted. And so I feel like today there are more multifaceted roles for people of all types, shapes and sizes and colors and, genders and sexual persuasion and orientation. So this is all a good thing, and it makes for the viewer a better thing too, because if, we live in the real world and you're trying to amplify that in some sort of artistic way, well, then everyone should be represented.
I'm assuming that you guys shoot LA to Vegas in California.
We do.
Has it been difficult being away from New York for the stretch of time being on the show?
Yeah, because I love New York so much. And I'm such a walker. I love to walk. Mm-hmm. And LA certainly is a driving city. But I have tons of friends there. I grew up there part of the time, as an adolescent. And I've worked there, throughout my entire life. So LA certainly isn't some place that I dread going. But I do miss New York when I'm out of it, because I'm just such an urban sort of walking person, and I love skyscrapers. I love man-made mountains, which I call skyscrapers. I just love it, and I love the mixture of all the things that come together here. That being the arts of fine art, as well as visual and dance and theater and film and TV. So it's all here. And not that it's not in Los Angeles. It's just that it seems even more accessible here. because it's sort of right in your face. But I take the energy from New York and I bring it to LA, so that's good.
I was going to ask, when you're really missing New York and LA, what's the Big Apple thing you go do?
Gosh, well, I'll go see whatever sort of theater is there, where it's at the Geffen Playhouse or the Amundsen or the Pantages. That always helps me. And I go to the cinema a lot when I'm in Los Angeles because they have great, places to go watch movies. So that helps me a lot. And then I'll just, I'll sort of go to the areas that sort of remind me of more of a sort of city feel. But also, I like to embrace what LA has to offer. So when I'm there, I sort of embrace that. And, I'll do a Runyon Canyon or something like this, or as I affectionately call it, Shit Hill, because people just let their dogs crap all over the place. But I'll try to embrace, what LA has to offer, because it is a beautiful, California is a beautiful state. So I'll sort of dive right in.
With the recent TV revivals of musicals, is there a favorite show you think they're missing out on by not bringing to the small screen?
Wow. You mean like Jesus Christ Superstar is about to come?
Yes. Or
NBC. Yeah. Wow, that's a good question. That's a great question. I'm such a tradition. Well, I wouldn't say that I'm a traditionalist. I just like anything that's good. I would love to see. Well, they've already done Gypsy on television, but they haven't sort of done the live thing. That's a great question. They've done so many that I've already enjoyed.
Yeah.
That I'm quite surprised that they're doing Jesus Christ Superstar. It's a great score, and I've done that show many times. I'm sort of stumped by this question because I'm like, what could they bring from? They've never done. This would be very racy, but hey, why not? They've never done Cabaret on television, and I think it's quite poignant. I mean, they certainly may have done it on PBS, but they've never sort of done a live sort of,
I mean, I grew up in rural Northeast Texas and saw it at a community theater, so I'm sure NBC can manage to get themselves through Cabaret.
Yes, I'd like to see that. I played the MC, and I think that it never gets old, because of the subject matter and how it was dealt with. So, and we are living in some times where that musical could be quite resonant, I think. I'd love to see that, and I'd love to see, maybe a Sweet Charity.
That was
as well.
Fosse was weirdly the thing I was thinking of. It would be fun to see.
Yeah, and those two musicals right there would take care of a little Fosse.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon. I've been looking forward to this interview all week, and I'm loving the show. Do you know if y'all have a season 2?
We don't know yet. All things are looking very good, though. And, let's just keep pumping it up. I think there's no other show on television quite like ours right now. And it's amazing that we're on network television. It's almost like a rare diamond these days, So we feel good about the brand. I think just wondering what's happening with Disney taking over Fox and that whole thing. But everything I've heard is pointing towards a season 2. So we'll just keep those fingers crossed. And, we got some wonderful episodes coming up. My birthday episode, I think, is next. And boy, is it a doozy.
Well, let's hope for a season 2 and an Emmy, and we'll get you on your way to your EGOT.
I love it. Thank you so much. What a wonderful interview.
Thank you, Nathan. Wonderful to talk to you. Have a
My
great
pleasure.
day.
Bye-bye.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Permanent Record Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, please go to patreon.com/tvdudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter @TVDudes, and help us out on iTunes by giving us a 5-star rating and writing a review. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and permanentrcrd.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.